Those who grew up in the 2000s might remember Kat DeLuna as a one-hit wonder with her 2007 single Wine Up featuring Elephant Man. The song made it into the US Top 40 that summer. It wasn't a massive chart hit. It peaked at number 28 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it was absolutely everywhere. You might also remember hearing "Run the Show" a few times. Even though it didn't achieve major chart success, its music video practically exploded on YouTube at the time. Kat DeLuna had so much potential. She had everything it took to become the next Latin pop superstar, but for some reason, her career completely stalled. And unfortunately, she never managed to build on that early momentum. She was born and raised in the Bronx in a Dominican family. At a young age, she moved with her family to the Dominican Republic, where she spent several years before returning to the United States and settling in Newark. During her time in the Dominican Republic, she was deeply influenced by local music. These influences, combined with American pop and R&B, shaped her unique sound, blending elements that might seem incompatible at first, but ultimately defined her artistic identity. Her solo career officially began in 2006 after she signed with Epic Records. Soon after, she released Wine Up, the track that introduced her to the world. The song seamlessly alternated between English and Spanish, reflecting her multicultural background. At the time, she was only 17 years old. This was followed by her debut album, 9 Live. The album was produced by RedOne, and it's worth noting that this was before he became a global superstar producer through his work with Lady Gaga on The Fame. Without exaggeration, Wine Up can be considered one of the defining summer hits of that year. The remix version alone was played at nearly every party. In many ways, Kat DeLuna was ahead of her time. Her label invested heavily in her, and it's likely they saw her as an alternative to Rihanna, who had already broken through a few years earlier with a similar tropical sound and Caribbean influence. There's also another theory that she was meant to fill the space left by Jennifer Lopez, whose popularity was starting to decline at the time. That's why the focus of her debut album leaned so heavily into dance music. However, despite the success of Wine Up, her debut album didn't meet the label's expectations, and she was eventually dropped. Fortunately, Universal Motown offered her a new deal, and she began working on her second album, Inside Out. It was released in Europe in 2010, though interestingly, it's hard to find on streaming platforms today. The album and its singles performed modestly, which ultimately led to the cancellation of its US release. One track from that album, Party O'Clock, later became part of a controversy after Jennifer Lopez released On the Floor in 2011. Many fans and critics pointed out similarities, claiming it resembled DeLuna's earlier track. After switching labels, Kat released several singles, including Unstoppable featuring Lil Wayne, Push Push with Akon, and Drop It Low. However, instead of releasing full albums, she mostly focused on standalone singles and repeatedly announced projects that never fully materialized. The only exception was her 2016 EP Loading. If you look at her streaming profile starting from 2018, there's no noticeable pattern. About one song per year. Her most recent release came out in 2024, and it's titled Cruella. Despite staying active, her career hasn't significantly progressed over the years. Was it because audiences thought, we already have Rihanna, we don't need another Caribbean R&B artist? That question still lingers. In many ways, Kat DeLuna's career feels like it stopped halfway. She has a good, pleasant voice, but it lacks a distinctive quality that would immediately set her apart. In the track Am I Dreaming, she could easily be mistaken for Leona Lewis. In Love Me, Leave Me, there are shades of Celine Dion. And in the End, she sometimes sounds like Jennifer Lopez. The same applies to her songs. They're well produced and follow current trends, divided between ballads and club tracks, but at the same time they lack instantly memorable hits like those of Rihanna or Nelly Furtado. Even the re-recorded versions of her own songs at the end of albums only reinforce the impression. As if, trying to appeal to everyone, she lost sight of her own artistic voice. And yet, despite all of this, Kat DeLuna remains a worthy and respected figure in dance pop music. She may not have become the next Rihanna or Jennifer Lopez as labels once hoped, but she still has her place. Some criticize her for being repetitive, while others praise her for staying true to her sound. Either way, she remains a talked-about artist, even during long breaks between releases. There's also a broader issue. It's often said that Latina artists have to work twice as hard to succeed in the industry, constantly fighting for their place. Despite everything, Kat DeLuna continues to create music, even if not as actively as in the early days of her career. And stories like hers are not uncommon in the music industry. We've already talked about similar cases on the channel. For example, Sabi, who had a strong start and even toured with Britney Spears and Carrie Hilson, who made a comeback last year after 15 years of silence with a series of new releases.